Motion to approve the minutes is mailed out.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will now move on to our first scheduled item here. We need to announce 3 vacancies on the Emergency Communications Board. The terms of John Hood, Sheriff Truman Jones, and a Mayor of Murfreesboro designee. Those terms are expiring, and we will seek, I think it's a recommendation from the Mayor's office is to fill those appointments and to be confirmed by the commission.
Is that right? Okay, this is my first time on that.
Yeah. So next item on the agenda is we need to fill 4 vacancies on the Equalization Board. And to that end, we have received only 2 applications for the 4 vacancies. The first application is from Laughlin Uri. He's a resident of District 6. He has already served 10 years. This would, of course, then be a reappointment for Mr. Uri. And then the other applicant is Mr. David Adams. He, too, is a resident of District 6. He has served on the Equalization Board for 2 years, so he, too, would be a reappointment.
So we've got 4 vacancies with 2 applicants.
4 vacancies and 2 applicants. The two individuals with terms expiring are Jim Baker and Albert Nelson.
Well, this is unfortunate. I should have found out that we didn't have but 2 applicants for 4 vacancies. We must fill those vacancies. It's critical. They're going to have a very, very heavy workload. We need them.
Well, can we go ahead and make a motion to accept Mr. Adams and Mr. Uri, and then repost other?
Can we nominate from the floor at the full commission?
Yes, we could.
I'll put that in the form of a nomination.
Vicki and I just slipped up, but we usually call them and insist that they get their application in. Somehow we haven't done that.
So Mr. Baker and Mr. Nelson are not willing to go back on, or are they?
Well, I would think they are, but I mean, somehow we didn't tell them that this application is due properly.
Why don't we, Commissioner Black said, move to approve these 2, and then communicate it again and nominate from the floor at the full commission.
All right. Is that a second?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Black, motion. Commissioner Phillips, second. All right, any further discussion on that? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next item on the agenda, we need to appoint a judicial commissioner. And for that, we have received a letter from our 2 general sessions judges, well, 2 of our general sessions judges, Judge McFarland and Judge Lowry, noting that the undersigned judges of the General Sessions Juvenile and Probate Courts of Rutherford County, Tennessee, hereby respectfully recommend that pursuant to the authorities contained in the Tennessee Public Acts of 1978, Chapter 933, the following be elected as judicial commissioners for the county for terms not to exceed 4 years, and such terms to conclude and terminate if and when the term is concluded or the service with Rutherford County is terminated. They recommend Savon Cole as appointment as for judicial commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no questions, I'll make a motion we approve the request.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're moving right along. We are on to our 4th agenda item, and that is the Rutherford County Endowment. This was an agenda item that I think was suggested by Commissioner Ronald Williams, so I would invite Commissioner Williams to come forward and kind of explain to us his thoughts on this.
Well, I don't know, it's a year or so ago, we had the discussion about that, and Commissioner Coggin and I were asked to kind of do just a little premature background into see where that was. And initially, the biggest problem that we first saw in this was if you are gonna set up an endowment, or, and I just use the word endowment, it could be called a lot of different things. One of the biggest dilemmas is having a mechanism to do the fundraising part of it. It was one problem. I mean, that's just one aspect of this. So, after looking into this, we have established the Rutherford County Month. We're into our, what is it, Mayor?
Well, we had our first event last October.
Had the first event last October, and that would be a very good vehicle. I've talked to the people that are in charge of doing that, and they thought that that would be an okay mechanism to at least use this as a soundboard for us to do something to promote the awareness of the Rutherford Endowment. But basically, the Rutherford Endowment, I mean, there are a lot of them that are around that we could look at. I mean, the Christy Houston Foundation is sort of one. The City Schools has one. There's a lot of them locally, and there's certain, MTSU has one. A lot of the colleges. But if we were to set up an endowment and to look at this strictly as a vehicle where people can donate money, this would not be something that we would take any existing county monies, taxpayers. I don't think we can do that even if we wanted to. But a place where people could donate some money. Several years ago, I had some people out in our community that were wanting to donate some money, $50,000, and they didn't have a place to put it that would feel that they could felt like that it was a couple, had no kids, and they wanted to do something. They ended up found and set some things up with some schools, but they initially wanted to do something for the county. They lived here, they're third, fourth generations. And so that's kind of what sparked my thought process on this. But if we were to move this from the committee to the commission to establish an ad hoc committee to get the details of this, because the details of this, as Adam and I found out, are vast and long and deep, and you need to come up with the configurations of how this would work. And I don't think that, I mean, it's beyond my scope to be able to sit down unless I just go over here and pull one of these that are already existing. So what I would like to see us to do as from this committee and the county commission to set up a committee. We can bring in, get a little press, get some people that are volunteer, the industry bankers, the investment people, people from the school, and to look at the other endowments. But just to give you an example, if we put $10,000 in this thing, and 100 years from now, at 4% per annum, it would be a little over $500,000. So this is not necessarily a vehicle to eliminate our tax problem for this June, but this could be a vehicle where we could set a long-term goal to help reduce debt, to do things, and eventually, far enough out, it could really do some substantial stuff. If people donated the money, the principal was never spent, the interest was folded back into it, a percentage of it, and we were able to pull a small percentage of the interest out to do projects that we would like to do, but we don't want to put in the budget. So the details of all of that would be critical and something that is beyond the scope of sitting down in one meeting to do.
Are you talking about taking donated monies from citizens and then bringing them in here and utilize it for county government projects?
Well, it's for county projects, but it has to be donated money. There has to be a fund set up that would be tax exempt. There are many details of this that, I mean, I haven't gotten into all the details, but what I would just like to see us do is, if we set this up now, 5-10 years from now, we could start reaping some small benefits from it, and 100 to 150 years from now, having set this, we could actually have some substantial funds. And we all complain and we all see close hand the restrictions that the state puts on us, that we can't do this, we can't do this. If we were to set up this fund and let the citizens of the county, as they go through their life, and there's a lot of elderly people that would put some money into this, we could have a lot of different, we could have a fundraiser thing some years if it wanted to get aggressive. If it didn't want to be aggressive, it could just sit there and it would be a vehicle that people could put money in, that only the interest would be spent, and somewhere down the line, had we done this when the county was formed and set this process up, you could see where we would be today 200 years later. So I just,
Question.
okay.
I remember it coming up, but I don't remember actually the details.
Well, we hadn't had any details yet. It was just a concept.
Okay. Do we have to figure out who this is gonna be benefiting, or?
All of the details have to be worked out. But it would be a vehicle,
And this ad hoc committee will be taking care of all that?
the ad hoc committee that we would, if the commission would move forward to set up this committee. I mean, and the committee may come back and say that that's not something they want to do. You know, that could be the case, but I think that major universities do it. There's so many people that do this, and this would be an opportunity for the county citizens to have some input in something for longevity. And it's not anything that people in this room are going to have the major benefit from, but if we could establish something like this, I think it could change the way monies are raised for a lot of different projects.
Who would you think would need to be on the ad hoc committee?
I don't know. I figured that between the county commission and the people that would come forward, that would be, I've talked to a couple of retired bankers that would be interested in maybe being in this, some people from the university that their business school may be interested, some people that are already on the boards from the Christy Houston Foundation. I don't know. I mean, there would just be, we couldn't appoint the committee at the next commission. I guess we'd have to get people that would call the mayor's office or go to the committee and get something appointed to see. I mean, it's a process. I mean, and I don't see that we could sit here and work out through all the details. Adam might be able to. He's pretty up on all that. But
Well, the good thing is, and for anybody that's watching, if anybody wants to donate money, you can do that today. And we'd happily take it. And get a donation, and so that's set up. And I was talking to Lisa a little bit before we came in here, just to make sure I understood that correctly, as well as she explained that we're doing that in some cases already, where people have donated money to, I believe, Eagle. Is that maybe wrong?
There is
A certain thing that was set up, and they wanted to go to a certain area. So
that's what I was speaking of.
The good thing is we already have the capability to do some of this already that we can team up with. Maybe not to the degree that you and I have talked about and that you're thinking of yet.
Well, the things we have now, Adam, as you well know, are for specific purposes. People
Right.
had a specific wish that they wanted to be fulfilled, so they put their money in and said, you can use this money for this purpose. Now, what I believe Commissioner Williams is talking about is it's a much broader based contribution into Rutherford County that could be used for any particular purpose that would benefit the citizens of Rutherford County. So,
But we could still follow that same roadmap. I mean,
Right.
we can set up with the same process she did for that specific gift. We could set up one with restrictions that says principal cannot be spent out of this account. So, but it could be used for,
and we could do that
the interest could be
even now.
used for, we could do that now with what we have.
Now, the thing you can't do is if you want some other governing body, a foundation, to actually administer this and set up the policies and procedures and distribute the funds independent of the county commission, basically, you would have to set up an independent board to allow that to happen. If you were like the city school board, that is a separate foundation, completely independent of city government. So you can do it just like we have in place now, and Lisa can take the money in and we can set it in a special pot that can be used only in interest if that's what you choose. Or you can set up an actual, quote, legal foundation, as John could tell you more about, that would function independent, but yet have its purpose initially defined as to support whatever things they choose to support that has anything to do with Rutherford County government.
You could set up a foundation that would be identical to Christy Houston as an example, Mr. Mayor, and it have its own board.
Have its own board.
And it could make decisions as to what those funds would be used for inside of the framework of county government.
Yeah, correct. So you got two approaches. One, the first one is a very, very simple approach, which we can do even now. It just would require the commission to actually approve and authorize Lisa to set up one more account, not a specific account, but a generic kind of account that people can make charitable contributions to.
And that could go for anything that we really needed to
Anything
spend
the
for.
commission chose to
Right.
use out of those earnings, if that's the way you want to structure it.
Right.
The other thought, the other part of that process, if it had its own board of directors, then we, as a commission, could appeal to that board for funds like to build the tennis courts, as an example, instead of using those from the county general fund. We could make application to them and let that board decide whether it's appropriate to use that or not. In essence, might take politics out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
And part of this is to just, as Adam was talking about, people can do this now, but to bring it through the October awareness in some form, and it doesn't have to be beaten to death. We don't need people calling folks at home at dinner to try to raise funds, but just the awareness of that. As somebody pointed out to me in different conversations I've had, we've got, with the census year that's coming up, we've got 250,000 people roughly in the county. And if everybody donated $1 for this fund, not that we're gonna do that, but the kids, I mean, pocket change. $250,000 a year put in a fund that's just gonna grow for a period of time. 100 years down the road, some people would be really happy. And we could use some benefits all along, but I've talked to several different people in different industries, and they thought it was a good idea for companies that had sales of large items to on some years that they might agree to say we put a few bucks for each one of these units that we sell as a promotion factor for them, and it'd go hand in hand with raising money for the county and using them for a sales thing too. How a lot of folks do that, X amount of dollars to go for this. So.
The two commissioners that kind of worked on this, the question that might relate to, is there any such foundation or endowment that exists anywhere else in county government within the state of Tennessee? Is there anything like this anywhere? Could we work through CTASC or someone to find out if there was? See if there's something like this that exists, so we could find out how it works and how they proceed. If there's something out there that's somebody that's using one, I'd kind of like to know that.
Well, I've heard different county governments discuss it over the last few years of things, but I've not known anybody that's actually set something up to do that. There may be, but there are plenty. I mean, even with our own system that we have now, the mechanism is there. It's just a matter of doing it, setting it up, and making people aware that this could happen. So, I don't know that any county government has gone to this lengths to set this up where the principal is not spent and it would move forward on this. But I think it would be a good thing for us to at least look at very seriously, if not go ahead and set up. All I got.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Ad hoc committee, anybody interested as far as establishing one and having the mayor take calls of people interested, or having the mayor contact people that might be interested in serving?
Something about the government being involved in a, quote, charitable foundation type of thing that I don't know, it raises questions in my mind. I would like to see someone from Mayor Burgess' office do a little background investigation to see if something like this exists in county government somewhere, and maybe even through Mr. Cope's office to make sure it's a legal type of process. And if there's something out there that exists, then we would have some information to look at to see how it operates and the benefits that they're receiving out of that. I'd like for maybe that to happen over the next month or so, and then come back with a report to the committee and see if something like that exists in county government somewhere, maybe not just in the state of Tennessee, but someplace else, if there's something like that. Shouldn't CTASC be able to help us, Mr. Mayor?
I'm sure they can tell us if they have some knowledge about that.
I would put that in form of a motion that we look into it to see if it exists somewhere and try to get a little more information before we put an ad hoc committee together to explore it.
See. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I'd add to that, you know, at the end of that 30 days or whatever they find out and the mayor brings back or something, then we have an alternative or have a look at this, basically just setting up an account and moving forward with a committee and all that, where we don't spend another 30 or 60 days, you know, studying it and figuring it out. But I don't think it's rocket science, but again, I think Commissioner Phillips made a very good statement, you know, with government being involved and it being charitable funds, we'll make sure it's done right. And I think we can probably set that up very easily and do this type program, but we'll make sure it's done right. So.
I would just to clarify that motion a little bit, I'd kind of like to know if there's something out there that exists, what are the guidelines? You know, do you use it for general fund type of expenses, or is it for extra things? And I'm using that tennis court as another example, that partnership with the city of Murfreesboro, or a park in conjunction with
non-reoccurring cost, I imagine, or expense.
Capital expenditures.
Yeah, yes, something, you know, that is recreation related, or something that's not general budget related. Those type of things I think might go over very well with the community, and not spending taxpayer funds, but spending other funds to enhance the quality of life in the community. So it has some merit, but I'd just like to know if those things are possible, and also if we don't find out anything, to have Mr. Cope give us kind of a report if it can be done, and what might be the foundations to set something like that up. So if that can't happen, and if it can't happen in 30 days, in 60 days, or whatever that is, it's a real busy time of the year for the mayor's office. So you know, if it can come back in 30 days, fine. If it can't, then I'm okay with 60 days from now.
Want me to read your motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Request the mayor's office to research to see if any of these endowment programs exist anywhere, with research by the county attorney's office on the feasibility and legality, with a report back.
In 30 to 60 days. Is that enough time, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Look forward to hearing, report back on that. Any other business? There is one item of business that I've circulated, take up. We got a letter from Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance. They have concern that during meetings they've witnessed commissioners, I guess, using phones to text, or I think the concern is that the text may be addressing issues maybe that are subject to discussion, and those texts would somehow violate the sunshine law. So they've suggested in their letter that we, as a committee, listen to that, consider that point, and then debate whether we want to take any action as far as policy recommendations regarding texting.
I hate to go back, but when I chaired the committee, I made an announcement that everything be turned off. And I think that should be our policy. Any cell phones or beepers be turned off when the meeting started. And I think that's appropriate. I really do. I just think you can't conduct business, county business and personal business at the same time.
Well, I got something, I can't I've got I'm on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if my job calls me, I'm gonna take the phone call. I'm not gonna go up here and text and try to get somebody's vote, nothing like that. But if I get a phone call from the fire department, I gotta take that phone call, you know.
I just got a text a few minutes ago. My wife said my son didn't hit a home run, but he hit it good. I enjoyed that, but I mean, you know, yeah, I agree. I think you can turn the phones off during the meeting or whatever.
Yeah.
And but I understand your emergency
but I
use
do-
kind of thing. Yeah.
I do understand that, not saying that anybody up here would, or anybody in public office would, but there is a chance somebody could be doing that, but that's the only time I would even get up, and I have got up off the commission floor and took a call and didn't have to leave, but, you know, that's.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, the last motion that Mr. Phillips made, I don't want any more work in it, Mr. Cope doesn't either. But surely somebody has addressed this in state government or other government. I don't know, do you know anything about that, Susan? This must have already been addressed, or should have been. It's a very technical, legal kind of issue, but I think we need to get some real serious advice on this. It is a good point.
Yeah. I mean,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, school board, they already, aren't they equipped with laptop computers? I mean, wouldn't that, I mean, that's pretty much so right now, or?
I don't know, do they have a ability, Mr. Jordan, to actually communicate with each other? I know it has the agenda and all the attending.
You mean during the
meeting?
No, sir, I don't think so.
You know, I don't think they can communicate during the course of the meeting. It's just full of information and data, I believe. But still, any number of organizations do have these abilities, and that should have already been tested somewhere legally, or a ruling by someone put down.
Well, it could, just to continue the discussion, a text could come to you from an outside party that's watching on television, for instance.
Sure.
I don't text. Thank goodness. But I have a granddaughter who is the world's expert.
Well, I'll say this, there are a lot of ways besides texting that we as commissioners can communicate on the floor. I mean, I can lean over to Commissioner Coggin and talk to him anytime I want to. So I don't think that isolating texting as being a particular issue is anything new. I probably can speak for all the commissioners. We as a whole are very mindful of the Sunshine Law and adhere to it absolutely to the T. So I think we're all alerted to this as far as being an issue, but do I think it's now become a common way that we can avoid the Sunshine Law? I absolutely do not think that, and I candidly don't see a need for a policy. I will say this too, that on my phone I can look on the internet. I can get a lot of information on my phone that doesn't have anything to do with texting, and a lot of that information, or some of that information, may be useful to me as we deliberate a particular issue. So I would hate to be without my phone if I use it as a calculator. As a matter of fact, when I'm sitting there looking at the budget, I use it as a calculator. So I think if we're treading into dangerous ground if we say that texting, it can be certainly prohibitive and tie us up when we don't mean to do it.
I know one of the reasons why we changed the voting process and flipping the switch, years ago, back when I was early elected in '90 or whatever, and you started with District 1 and you went down through there and it went all the way around, and and some of the commissioners back behind was, more popular because they could, vote the popular way maybe. And so then one night, the county executive started back at 21 district, and went backwards, what? You're supposed to start over on 1, and, to really knock out a lot of that stuff, and whether it was done or not, a lot, or yes or no, or whatever, that's beside the point. I think if you really want to you know, get around any issue, you can do it, you know. Hey, everybody, you know, this means good and this means bad, you know, or something, I don't know. But, it's a good point. You know, I don't know what the thing is besides just turn it off and leaving it off during the meeting if you can, but, you know.
Somebody has, Mayor's right, somebody's had to ask that question
Yeah.
before, and there's an answer out there someplace. Is it ethical, unethical, is it legal or not legal, and there's an answer out there.
Yeah, there was a case not too long ago that was in the news, I believe it was about twittering, but that wasn't necessarily with the Sunshine Law, but about twittering and, well, no, in the course of a meeting and letting everybody in the outside world know what was going on. But that I think failed, but there has been some discussion about other things like that.
And also, I mean, I didn't want you to think that I don't know how I come across a while ago, but I agree that it needs, we need to be mindful of those situations. But in types of emergency, with my case, I mean, I may have to take a call from the fire department, you know.
I have to agree.
You know, you know, we work together every day, and it just, you know, I'm dealing with stuff. But it ain't Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with 170 something employees. Something's happening all the time.
Can we look into that, see if if that's been asked before and all that sort of stuff? I mean, what they've done on it or anything? I mean, CTAS has been involved in that too, I imagine, hasn't it?
Maybe.
Maybe they have.
Just maybe put it on the agenda for next month and.
Big time, making out work on this.
Okay.
But Ms. Allen, I think it's a good point.
It's extremely distracting when you're trying to run a meeting and telephones are going off. I haven't heard a lot of that recently, but a few years ago, you heard them all the time.
I make sure mine goes on vibrate as soon as I walk in the courthouse.
Well, it's probably a good idea to ask that they be turned off. I don't see anything wrong with that, and we have had interruptions. They've almost always been from the audience. And I understand how that can happen. I understand. And I haven't been caught, but it could happen to me. And it happens in church. I mean, it happens. You forget.
Sure. I think as much as his distraction, the issue was just the possible violations of the Sunshine Law according to the letter.
Just distraction, you're not paying attention to the discussion.
All right. Any other business? We are adjourned.